not hearing anything from the room. We're getting really strange noises, but we can't hear voices.
Have you guys convened yet?
Sound is not coming through to us.
Okay. Member Renahan.
Okay, that I hear. Here.
Okay. And, we lost Member Elliott. Member Tornatore.
Here, back. Here.
Member Say. Member
Here.
Elliott.
Here.
All right.
Where are our microphones in the room?
And so you've got to talk loud from that end.
Okay, all right, so we have a quorum. Public comment, we don't have any regular public comment, do we?
We have none.
All right, Mr. Zay.
Yeah, point of personal privilege. I don't know if everybody knows we have a hero in the room here today. Our coroner was at an event on Saturday, and someone came under distress, and he acted quickly and jumped up and took care of the situation. And I asked the circuit court clerk, who was there, Mr. Kaczmarubis, if he could tell us what happened on Saturday.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Zay. We were attending a luncheon and speak, so just take this off, your pardon. And we were attending a luncheon together, and it was just kind of a very informal type setting. And Dr. Jorgensen was facing me, and I was facing out, and he suddenly, his head popped up and noticed that, and literally his eyes went, he said, somebody's in distress. And he turned around and literally was on this gentleman in a New York section, as I indicated on my post. And he kind of grabbed the guy, and the guy was well over 6 feet. Well, he's taller than me. Okay, so he's well over 6 feet. Okay, I mean, let the record clearly reflect that. Okay, and well over 6 feet, and he kind of threw the guy back into the chair because he realized, and talking with him afterwards, that he wouldn't be able to manage this guy if he fell over. We would have had additional injuries going on. And he grabbed this guy and worked on him with the Heimlich maneuver, and several times, not once, twice, three. He was at it for several times, and finally, the guy's hand was, kind of flailing about, and then you could start to see his hands kind of tighten back down, and his face had kind of gone ashen, and there was no color there, from my vantage point, and hands went down, and Jorgensen, in an incredibly mild manner, just kept the guy calm, talking to his ears, saying, get this, it's done. And he just kept talking to him, and everyone else was freaking. I gotta tell you, the cameras are up, ready to go 911. Everybody was going. Jorgensen, he just kept talking to him. The guy's hands finally came down. He relaxed enough, and then finally he dislodged it, and he brought him back. Okay, and he just kind of sat with him and visited with him and took him back off the ceiling a little bit. But it was a very anxious moment for everyone who was present. Everyone. I literally stood there with sweat coming down the side, and I didn't do anything, but observed. And so my friend, who I had the honor of knowing and serving with last 2 terms, did an outstanding job. And as I said in my post, Dr. Richard Jorgensen may have cheated coroner Richard Jorgensen. Okay, and so, but again, Dr. Jorgensen, what a great job. Thank you.
Well, it was embarrassing, but and he's very mild-mannered. He would never say anything on his own. So that was.
Well, everybody needs to know how to do the Heimlich maneuver. Don't know how to call me up on teacher and do it, and we'll have a class about it. So it's critical for everybody to know how to do that. So.
I watched your presentation at PBS last night too. So.
Oh, is that on last night? Yeah.
You sent me the link. So.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna just so everybody knows. Actually, this week I will put out a 6-month review of our overdoses and suicides for the year, and it's shocking. So a preview of it is that we had 95 overdoses in the year last year, in the whole year. We've had 70 overdoses in the first 6 months of this year. So it is a over 50% increase in the number of deaths. And actually most of the overdoses, we were actually down pre-COVID. And then once the COVID era of inside and such, overdoses and suicides markedly increased. So I'm going to be putting that report out in the next few days. I'm just finishing up the statistics.
Last night I sent an email to Dennis because he reports on all the COVID-19 deaths and respirators and things like that. And I asked him if he could put together something with what all the if there's been spikes in suicides,
Right.
you know, whatever else has been a side factor of COVID-19. So.
Right.
All right, I don't have any remarks. Is there a motion to approve the August 4th, 2020?
Second.
Moved in second. Any questions or comments, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that passes. Moving on to resolution 6A, acceptance and appropriation of Victims Crime Act Child Advocacy Center.
So moved. Second.
Second.
In second, I had one question. It looked like we're getting 80,000. Does that mean we're putting in 20,000 ourselves? I just looked at it. I'm looking at page 6.8. It says grantee should receive a maximum of 80,000. Our resolution says it's 100,000. So we can find out before.
Chairman Eckhoff, can you hear me?
Yes. I hear you.
The 20,000 is the match.
The match from us.
Yes.
Who was that? That was Captain for a second. All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that passes. And then JPS 2020 change order Sentinel LLC.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. Any questions or comments? This is for electronic monitoring services, which my understanding has gone up because
Aye.
The motion combined and approved procurement requisitions 7A and 7B.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second, any questions regarding Measure 7A? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes. Grant proposal notifications. Motion is approved, so moved in file.
Second.
Moved in second, any questions or comments regarding this grant proposal notification? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Can you hear me, Tim?
Yeah, we're having, all three of us who are listening in are having real problems. There's like I don't know how to describe it, like a spaceship or like a distortion sound that's kind of coming and going. We haven't had it in previous meetings, but it's pretty bad and it's hard to hear. I don't know if anyone can maybe just take a look at the sound. I don't know if we're doing something differently today than we did before, but it's pretty rough on our end.
We just shut the doors and I'll try and have the presenter speak underneath a microphone, but I do appreciate all three of you voting aye on everything.
And you guys, from this end, you guys really have to talk.
Only two.
We have some air conditioning, air
It's
handling.
the HVAC in the building,
Yeah,
without a
I
doubt.
understand.
So we'll do our best, but this may be the best we can do. So we'll move.
We can hear fine in here.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to our circuit clerk. Get the Rubus. If somebody can show them where the mic is, so we can be close to it.
Mr. Cook, well, I'll step back so you can sit here so it can be heard. We have a mic right here. Can everybody hear me when I'm talking?
Wait, you want to
If you sit,
Can you hear us here? If I speak here, can you hear me?
You're gonna want to probably come up here where Sean is.
Right, but I'm gonna let that check. He has the shorter of the presentation.
Problem is really the feedback more than anything. It's very loud.
The mics are in the ceiling and there's HVAC that's going overhead that's probably interfering with the mics.
It's never happened in any other meeting.
It's just a plot. Do it on purpose.
can let Dr. Jorgensen first, if you don't
You
mind.
want me to sit over there? Can you hear me? Is it the same if I sit here? Is it the same if I sit here? Can you hear the same?
I can hear pretty good.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I'm going to take this off. So hopefully my presentation is going to be short, as I have a budget that Mr. Zay comments is just a change order in his stormwater budget. So we have a small budget.
It's a rounding.
I'm going to talk a little bit about our office, the services that we provide, especially the autopsy and toxicology costs. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of what's changed in the last 8 years, when I came in 2012, we did 4,363 cases. Last year we did 5,714, an increase of 41% during the 8 years I've been here. Next slide, please. The number of toxicologies that we do, which is a very costly item for us, again, went from 319 in 2012 to 369, a 16% increase. Next slide, please. Especially the number of autopsies. In 2012, we did 243. Last year, we did 352 autopsies, which is a 45% increase. And last year, when I presented to you our budget, I elucidated that much more, very much related to the number of overdoses, opioids, and drug and alcohol-related deaths. Those are fairly mandatory that the national standard says that we need to do an autopsy on those. Next slide, please. So what do we do in our office? It's we really have just a number of major items. The first major item is we investigate cases and we administrate the office. The second thing, a budget item, is to transport bodies, to move bodies from a scene or from a home or a car crash such to our office. Number three, perform autopsies, very critical part of our job. And the last thing is ancillary testing, x-ray and toxicology. Next slide, please. So administrate the office, investigate cases. So we have 2 administrative assistants, one of which is kind of at the front desk and does all the budgetary things involved in putting checks in and administering death certificates, very critical part of our office. The other person, who's the high-level administrative assistant, does the budgetary, payroll, all those other type of things. But most importantly, we have 10 deputies, and their costs, all of these people, and the major part of our budget is salary. If you look at our budget, almost all of it is salary. But these people are where the salary goes. And I want to really make an emphasis to everybody listening and everybody that's thinking about our budgets, is that I and every person in my office have worked every single hour of every single day through this entire year. So there's not been one person in my office, including myself, that's worked from home or not been in the office. We are out in the field dealing with deceased persons, their families, potentially exposure to COVID and everything else. And every single one of our employees has done that without complaint and without any extra compensation whatsoever. But we've been there every single day. Next slide. We transport bodies. So we have an independent contractor under contract, a local ambulance company. It changed this early in my first term. It's decreased the amount of money that we have to pay per transport from the previous one that we had, and they have increased amounts of capacity in that they have about 20 cars around DuPage County at all times. Decreased our overhead, overtime, and increase our ability to get people here to the office. But that's a major a cost for us. Next slide, please. Probably the most important thing that we do in our office is to do autopsies. We do that to determine the cause and manner of death. It's very critical. We have a chief forensic pathologist that's fully boarded in pathology and forensics. To be quite honest with you, she costs a lot of money. If you look at Mr. Grogan's list of highly paid employees, she's in the top 10. But there are only 500 of these people in the entire country. And I was able to bring her into our office and keep her here. There is currently a job that's been available in Lake County for the same job, paying more money than she's making here. And so it is critical that we keep this person here. There's only, like I said, there's only 500. She's irreplaceable. She does a critical job for us every single day. However, we are now over the amount of autopsies that can be done by one person by national standards. And we also provide services doing autopsies on Saturday to provide for the number of cases that we do. So we have outside independent contractor pathologists, mainly people that are coming from Cook County that are just doing extra work for us. And they do about 100 autopsies a year, or slightly less than that, and they cost about $1,000 a trip for us. This is critical. We could not do our work for the people, for prosecution, for determining the cause and manner of death without this. Next slide, please. Toxicology, critically important. With the current level of funding, I think I've said this to the board many, many times, that you guys have funded us with adequate funding to allow us to use the NMS labs, which is the national standard lab for the country. We don't have to compromise on trying to cheap out in the tests. It allows us to use this state-of-the-art testing technology, identifying, collecting relevant data, and then allowing us to report on this and be a leader locally, nationally in identifying and reporting new drugs. And a good example of this is last week I put out a public service announcement that we've had 2 new drugs coming into the area, and these have been involved in 15 deaths of these 70 deaths I've been talking about. So we've been able to identify these new drugs and report it to the doctors and the people in the community that we have new drugs coming in to watch out for them. Without doing the proper testing with a national lab like NMS, we wouldn't know that. You know, how do we know that? Because NMS is on top of all the changes that are occurring in the country. When bath salts were in, they were on top of which bath salts were important. When and then now that when the fentanyls were coming in, they knew which fentanyls were being in the area, and we were able to be leaders in telling the community about the fentanyl crisis. And the same thing now. So that's critically important that level is there. Next slide, please. So on a yearly basis, I will continue to inform you and the press and the public the latest local trends, including the fading heroin crisis, the fentanyl epidemic, which I've talked to you about for a couple of years now. And then again, I jumped my slide here on August 13, I put out this public service announcement with these 2 new drugs. Next slide, please. X-ray testing. So X-ray is probably one of the things you never hear me talk about. We have our own X-ray suite. We have actually 2 X-ray suites, one for emergencies. And if I would have had to move these people to CDH and do the testing over there, it probably cost us an extra $125,000 a year. So our in-house X-ray department saves the county approximately $125,000. Next slide, please. So with that, I would, the one other thing that I would like to say is that we've, in the toxicology department, because we have been involved in the Illinois Violent Death Reporting System, IVDRS, and the statewide unexpected death system, which is basically opioid system. We've been able to get grants for the last 3 years. 3 years ago, it was only $4,000. Last year, it was $69,000, which almost paid for our entire toxicology budget. And so that goes directly into the general fund and offsets our toxicology. This year, it's only going to be decreased to $19,000. But these are grants that we received because of our involvement in the opioid crisis. So with that as a summary, I know that these are difficult times, but I have a small department, and even a 5% budget decrease would be very, very difficult. I submitted a budget as asked of -10%, -20, and -30. All of those would be devastating and would probably cost me, a 10% budget cut for me is $150,000, probably represents me losing 2 deputies. As I said, our deputies are out in the street and out in the community every single day. And so I respectfully request that I have minimal budgetary loss in relationship to last year. Thank you very much. Any questions? comments?
Yeah, first, thank you for your work and all you do. You may want to close that down so you can see the other people who are raising their hands. You know, that's a problem I have as a chairman. I can't see all the people when you're sharing screen. In the past, when Kane County, I believe it was, didn't have the ability to take on all of the autopsies that they were doing, you were able to enter an intergovernmental agreement, which actually made some money for us along the way. I know, obviously, every other coroner's office in the area, I'm sure, is facing the same struggle as you are. Have there been any discussions about shared services that might be able to save money, maybe generate revenue for us, or do that? Because I imagine they don't have some of the same capacity that we do.
I would say that there has not been. I am in regular contact with the local coroners, just because we always work very well together. Like, for example, I'm in almost weekly contact with the McHenry County coroner because that coroner resigned, and there's a sheriff's officer running the coroner's office. So we work as a resource for him on a regular basis. I talk to Kane County all the time. Kane County is building an entirely new coroner's office and morgue right now. So they've gone the other way. They're like, we're putting huge amount of money into bricks and mortar in Kane County. So that would be a great idea, but right now there's been no interest that I know of in that.
Okay, and then the expenses that you've talked about, are any of them, are you able to document any expenses this year that exceed what was anticipated in your budget because of COVID-related matters, including anticipated increase in suicides or overdose deaths?
Yeah, we're running ahead of everything that we predicted last year. So, you know, again, we've had a greater than 50% increase in the number of overdoses. Every single one of those are an autopsy, a toxicology, and usually a complicated toxicology, not just a basic. This is, you know, a deep level investigation. So it's going to be a lot of work for us to meet our budget this year due to the stresses of COVID. You know, COVID's one stress. We have really not been affected very much by COVID other than preparing to help the community, you know, so we bought a refrigerated mobile morgue, and we have brought a bunch of equipment to use that and to process it, you know, and all that we anticipate is going to be able to be paid for with federal COVID funds. That hopefully, though I've paid for it out of our budget so far, and I hope that it's going to be able to be put under the COVID. I'm sure it will be. So anyway, but we have not been overwhelmed due to COVID, but we have been overwhelmed due to these other factors that are related to the lockdown of everybody in their house for 5 months. You know, it's been devastating to the addicted community, to people with depression. You know, I looked at, I don't want to go into it too deeply, but I've looked into every single one of these overdoses and suicides, and almost to a person, there's one of the things of mental health issues, previous depression issues, previous financial and marital difficulties, living alone, previous addiction problems or rehabilitation. And these are all the factors that if you take these people and you put them in their house for 5 months, it's a boiling kettle. It's horrible. And so that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing this boiling over.
Thank you. Mr. Elliott?
Yes, Coroner Jorgensen, thank you for your report, and thanks for everything you do. I know you've got a really tough job, and I know I personally appreciate everything that you do. I just had sort of a quick question. I apologize because I've got to jump over to economic development to chair that. But what I don't think I've actually seen is your proposed budget. I mean, you had the slides this morning, which walk us through very clearly kind of what your office is doing, and I think identify some pressure points. I think that's the term I would use to describe some of the budget pressures you've got. But I don't think we've actually seen, at least I haven't seen, the proposed budget that I think you said you had submitted. And I wonder if that can be circulated to the members.
I apologize if that's an error on my part. We were told to present a -10, -20, -30. We did that, and I just assumed that that would have been circulated to the committee.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, and if it's been sent to me and I missed it, then I apologize, but I would very much like to see that. I have seen your budget in the past. I'm pretty sure I know what it consists of, but it would be informative to me to see that.
My budget honestly is very simple. There's a general budget, and then there's our quarter fee budget. The general is very simple. It's got the things I talked about: toxicology, transport, outside pathologists, and salaries. And it's a very sparse budget. It fits in the top half of one page. The quarter fee budget is much larger and more complicated because we pay for all kinds of other things out of that budget to alleviate the county of those budget items.
I understand and appreciate it. Thank you. And Chairman, I apologize. I need to duck over to chair another meeting.
Anybody else have a question? Has to run to another meeting?
I'm good, sorry.
Mrs. Cassard? Dawn, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. I was unmuting myself. Dr. Jorgensen, thank you so much for your presentation. Like Member Elliott, I saw the slideshow that you presented come via email, but I just wanted to make sure that I get a copy of the actual budget as well. I'm not on this committee, but could you send it to me as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Mr. Zay?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jorgensen. You know, I'm looking forward to your report. Obviously, we're hearing from you the side effects of COVID and what's going on that you're seeing. We've heard from our sheriff, domestic violence, child abuse, alcoholism, addictions. These are real things that nobody's talking about out there. I think it needs to go out there. They talk about schools not going back to social, development that those kids have to have. So these are effects that, that you're going to tell us about that I think people need to wake up and see, and how we can help in other ways to give people the help that they need, especially mental health and other things like that. But that's something that the press doesn't talk about, but it's out there, and I think we're seeing it, you're seeing it, the sheriff's seeing it, and it needs to be talked about.
Thank you. Yep.
I had a question. What is a forensic pathologist, and what do they do different than the other coroner's offices that don't have one?
Well, that's a good question. The law in Illinois requires that a autopsy of a child suspected of dying of sudden infant death syndrome is required to have a pathologist do the autopsy. Doesn't even say it has to be a forensic pathologist. All other autopsies in the state of Illinois, it's legal for a physician. So me as a surgeon, I could do the autopsy. And think about Illinois, especially back in the old days, there weren't a lot of pathologists around, there weren't a lot of doctors around. Small downstate counties, they don't even have doctors in the area. As the field of forensics grew in the 1900s and really in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, really blossomed into a field of forensics, bullets and poisoning and good forensic testing, DNA. It became a group of pathologists that then specialized in bullet trajectories, what a bullet looks like, and that thing about, oh, that's an entry wound, that's an exit wound. That really isn't as clear as it is on TV and all this stuff. So there's become a field of people that have specialized. And so our pathologist, she went to medical school, then she did her pathology training, which made her a clinical pathologist. And then she did a fellowship at Cook County Medical Examiner's Office to learn the art of basically deceptive death. Was this somebody that was shot, poisoned, strangled, those kind of things. So that's what a forensic pathologist does. And as I said, there's only 500 of them in the entire country.
The only other question I had is autopsies, you said are up.
Yes.
Does that correlate to total deaths being up?
It correlates to the type of total deaths being up. Every year we've had an increase in the number of deaths that are reported to us in DuPage County. and the number of deaths related to, for example, when I became coroner, we had 38 deaths due to overdose deaths. And those are mandatory autopsies due to the fact that that's the national standard. You know, last year we had 95. This year we've already had 70. So, I mean, you know, these numbers just keep increasing. And quite honestly, our pathology department has been stressed lately, just trying to keep up with the number of deceased persons. We've had, in the last couple months, we've had at least 3 times in 3 days and another 5 days, 3 days of people that we had 3 overdoses in the same day. Now think about this in relation to what I said to you in 2013, that we had 3 overdoses in one day, and we had 5 days with 2 overdoses in the same day. Just think about how ridiculous that is for this county.
All right, well, I could probably ask more questions, but I know Mr.
But
Cantor.
Mr. Katrubis has a very, thank you for your
Just
time.
go online and watch old episodes of Quincy, and you'll be fine.
By definition, this is going to be a short presentation.
Quincy, nice, you're dating yourself. Holy crap. Good morning.
Good morning. You guys can talk. There's 2 chairs back there.
Yeah, there's chairs right here, guys. Kevin, there's a chair over there if you want to move that over.
They don't like
Okay.
that. They don't like people.
Okay. In the interest of time and everything like that, I'm not going to try to move this on too quickly, but I know you have to get to other meetings and things like that. This is, believe it or not, my 17th budget in front of this august body. I think some of the times we're in front of finance and other times in front of JPS. What you're going to hear, and let me back up. Let me introduce Julie Elbson, who runs my finance. Lisa Goodwin, she has many titles, but legislative liaison is what she is right now. So maybe help explain a little bit of the Criminal Traffic and Assessment Act. And I know we have questions regarding that. And then head of my IT is Kevin Baskey, who just does a remarkable job, kind of working a lot of hours lately. And so it's a great team, and I mean we as a collective are doing this. Again, it is my 17th budget, and my proposal at this point, and I hope you all received it. And I see member Larson is looking at it right now, and so we want to get it there Thursday. We want to get it a day early than Friday. It's number 11, so proposal is $7,996,965. What you're going to hear a little bit in this presentation is we've broken it up into, partitioned it out a little bit. The duties and responsible of the clerk's office, and then how the circuit clerk's office stacks up against surrounding counties other than Cook. The impact of the Criminal Traffic and Assessment Act of 2019. And the impact of the pandemic and how it's going to look as we go forward, and then look a little bit at the future of traffic cases and things like that, which is the largest volume of cases that we have, and then there'll be others. All right, so our budget at $7,996,000. The largest portion of it is in our budget is roughly about 90, almost 94% of it is $7,327,000 in 2020. This year, it's gone up roughly $60,000 to $7,388,000. That difference is the COLA, or the county's part of the COLA. Under the past CFO, Paul Rafek, it was asked of the countywides, or certainly of my office, to share in that 2%. And that and the county would come up with 1%. The clerk's office would come up with 1%. Unfortunately, we did not receive that part of it from the county. It's just part of the real life world. And so that's the difference between the two. There really is no difference from last year to this year. Okay, but that less than 1%, that 0.83%. Next slide, thank you. During 2019, unaudited, you can see that we distributed $16,425,591 to the County General Revenue Fund. Also, additionally, we distributed 8.9 million to local governments and 7.5 to the state of Illinois. We collect also and distribute funds from special accounts, which is child advocacy, court automation, dock storage, court security, probation, and court services, DUI evaluation, and other areas of the operation that contribute to the operation of the county. Next slide. And let's get a little bit into the duties. Most of we have a few attorneys present in here. We've lost a few of the attorneys, and Elliott and Grajewski leaving, but you have a kind of an idea of what we do. And our primary responsibility is the 1,017 references to the Illinois compiled statutes and 421 references, and it says shall next to each one of them with the Supreme Court rules. So there is no latitude here. It's what we do every day, and those 1,500 along with unfunded mandates go into our job on a daily basis. Next. We have 3 parts of the stool, which is the standing responsibilities of our office, and that is we are the keeper of the record, and we maintain every record proceeding since 1839, which is when DuPage County was incorporated into the state of Illinois. There would be an argument by Naperville and Wheaton that we have every one of them, but that's for another conversation. We are, as a subset of that, we are required to be in every courtroom by state statute, and the reference to the site is up there. We preserve evidence, which is the second part of our stool, that is admitted into the court as part of the record. And third, and it's been argued as most important over time and is involved, and that is the stewardship of the money. The tens of millions of dollars that roll through that in fees, fines, and cost, that not only do we receive and collect, but that we disperse back out to the agencies, whether at the state, the county, or at the local level. A quick glance of our other operations. And these are just a part of it. You see the civil new filings, 25,000, criminal filings, 166. That's with traffic involved there. We also roughly, any combination we have on that right now is roughly about 475,000 items on the dockets and managing with the judges. Traffic tickets from 50 different law enforcement agencies. And administratively, this doesn't really get referenced very much, but we manage on a day-to-day basis roughly about 40% of all the traffic tickets that come in. So that means we're taking in what, rather than must appears, but may appears, people that want to pay their ticket rather than going to court, okay, rather than having their day of court. They come in, we take care of it, we manage it. So that takes roughly 40% off the call of the court, okay? And we do that every day, and we manage it, what we do pretty well. I think better than pretty well. We process roughly 13,000 warrants and about 35,000 summonses. Additionally, the clerk manages about 1,000 phone calls a day and about 550 visitors a day, over and above what the people moving through in the hallways, going to different courtrooms and attending court calls. This year or last year, we had sent out roughly for 2019, 151,000 notices. At this to date, we're roughly at about 73,000 notices. That goes into the notices that we've made over the last couple months in just continuances alone. Next slide. Head count. So you can see since 2004 when I got there, you're seeing the head count, which was around roughly about 194, 195 at that point. I had at that point part-time. I had 7 part-time at that point. And then we're down to now 150 in our office and no part-time. And so that puts us down pretty close to 22-23% reduction between where I started in 2004 and where we are in 2019. Next slide. We kind of did an analysis, as I told you at the outset. We broke this up and give you a little bit of how we relate to the other counties. You can see the head count of DuPage, Kane, Lake, and Will, which are outside of Cook. And so where we are, we stand at about a little lower headcount as a percentage of the population. We're at the lowest end of those four. And cases handled by the employees, we're looking at Lake County or strike that as DuPage County handling the most of those. And I leave this with you, so in case you have any questions, we can go back to it, okay? So just in the interest of time. 2019, the Criminal Traffic and Assessment Act, which went into effect July 1st, it has been, people has indicated that it might be a little controversial. It is a complete change as to what we are doing prior to, and with the fees and percentage distribution, and it changed the way we do things. Now, saying that, we are currently running two tandem types of rights of computer systems, and that is we have to accept all violations that were and what was adjudicated prior to July 1st. So we have to maintain the old system, okay? And now we have to any violations going forward of July 1st, 2019, we have to do it on the new system, okay, under the new law and statute. So we're running kind of tandem groups here. And so you're going to see some variations as we go along, because as things are adjudicated that may have taken place in 17, 18 and prior to July 1st, that has, again, work under the old law. So as we move forward, as we look at the cases and things like that, and we're going forward, we believe that we're right about where we should be or would have predicted we would have been outside of the pandemic, okay? And that has kind of changed things for everyone, and I appreciate that. Next one. The criminal traffic and impact on the county. This is where you see the bread and butter right there, and that is the largest cases and the largest volumes. Over the past 4 years, or past prior 3 years, we were looking at the average case disbursement at around $66.71, roughly $65 if you do the 3 years and you do kind of a median in there. Between 2019, July 1st, up to February prior to the pandemic, we were already all the way up to 83.21. So there was an increase based on the new schedule in terms of disbursement to the county. Okay, next slide. It was indicated in prior presentation by our very good state's attorney and a dear friend of mine, Bob Berlin, and he indicated in his testimony that the Criminal Traffic Assessment Act had impacted his office with the $1 million. This was not unpredicted, okay, at this point. I'm not using the correct terminology, but we anticipated that loss of the $1 million. And let me quickly talk about that. Prior to January 1st, July 1st, 2019, when state police wrote tickets in the county of DuPage, okay, there were 3 sections, the state, the county, and law enforcement, okay? They were broken up into 3 parts of it, and each one of them had a percentage. The state police would write a speeding ticket in DuPage County. The county portion and the law enforcement portion would come to DuPage County. All right, it didn't go to the state of Illinois like most normal law enforcement agencies. So if there was a ticket in Elmhurst, Illinois, the law enforcement agency, under the old law, 44.5% of that, okay, under percentage distribution, would have gone to Elmhurst. Okay, I'm keeping it simple, okay, for the sake of conversation. That part of it now, when the state police wrote it, went to the county. It no longer. Subsequent to July 1st, as part of the change in the law, it now goes to the state. It goes to the state police. That is the difference in the monies in the Criminal Traffic and Assessment Act, okay? And state police write a lot of tickets, as we're aware of in DuPage County. So that's where that deficit comes from. It's a change in the law. State's Attorney Berlin was absolutely correct. There was a difference, but overall, the revenue neutral, I should say, revenue neutral is in the county is is there. We've accounted for that. Okay, next slide. All right, projections and gains and things like that are expected or offset by losses in lower volume cases like felony. Traffic cases are closed and paid much faster than serious criminal offenses, so we do not have enough data for other criminal cases. So we're working strictly with TRs, OVs, and DTs or DUI cases. Okay, and it all begins, the pandemic was showing that we were almost on target. Lisa, if I would look at it, right, I would say we were almost on target. Next. The impact to the criminal traffic, there you can see over the years, I showed you this now, again, it was roughly at 65, and now it is about almost $100 per payout, okay, disbursement per case. So it has moved up considerably under those numbers, okay? Next. This is where it kind of gets with the coronavirus and disbursement. You can see what happened. It is a huge change, a sea change of disbursements to the county under the general fund, okay? I mean, we were working very well, and then the floor slipped out from under us over those couple months, and it is just starting to pick up. And at one point it was down about 45%, and now it's recovered to about 72% of its normal, okay? And that is as of August 1st. So it's kind of slid back, but it's not anywhere near where it would be at 100%. Next slide. This is monthly disbursements that you see through July. Now this is when it says 1 down there, that means January through 7 July. You can see where the monthly disbursements are. It's tracking down. It bottoms out through the 4 and 5, and then it's starting to work its way back up. This is a little bit easier way to see disbursements and how it's starting to move back up. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is the daily impact on civil filings. I told you that we would look at civil as well as criminal. This is where we are. These are daily. The envelopes were document files. And these are the proceedings. It was up, 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 and then it obviously went south, and now it's starting to slide back upward. We're starting to see a positive trend upward, and that is in the civil part, and we're about at about 85%. About 85%, right? Yep. Thanks you. All right, next. These are this is the highest volume cases, and with the DTTR and OV cases, these are the highest volumes. You can see this by month through January. I asked what that large spike in February is. We surmised that it was following Super Bowl. So those are, that's where the cases came from. Okay, so I just right through the ceiling, go figure, right? So this is where we are through August. These are the cases starting to trend up, and we're at roughly, again, that 70%. Okay, that's 70%. Next slide. Normally the cases we have roughly about 200 per docket. Let me stop right here. And when you can read this, okay? When he reduced the cases, and when I say he, Chief Judge Dan Guerin, he capped the cases off with every case type, okay? This happened to be with traffic because of the sheer volume, but he did it in the interest of public safety. Having that many people in the courthouse, he felt was not helpful, okay, to the general public, to the court, to the legal community, to the employees of my office and the other employees who work through. So he capped it off, and he went over it with his presiding judges that they felt that was careful. Well, those 80 cases, as he looked at it, and he has been monitoring this continuously, he said, you know what? There's even too many cases, and too many people in the courthouse, so he reduced it and capped it to 50 cases a day, okay? Now, again, it was health concerns. The Chief Judge sets time and place. So what he says goes. And so he believed in this particular case that there were too many people coming into the courthouse. Since we had to move that third field court in, Addison did not open, so we moved that third field court in. So we have a lot of trafficking going in. We had to maintain social distancing, and we only had so much space in these courtrooms and traffic courtrooms, especially the third courtroom that we call the Addison courtroom, which is down the hall and in the multifaceted facility rooms down the hall. And that was never intended to be a courtroom. But I got to tell you, the maintenance department of the county did an outstanding job in putting that together and creating that third courtroom. I can't say enough about that group. But the cases are now down as of August moving forward. So this will delay revenue on cases further down. Okay, as we look at revenue, when you go from 200 to 80 to 50 cases, and there is a huge difference. Let me say this to everyone and to everyone who's watching, there is a huge difference between assessment, collection, and disbursement. And so when you have waivers involved, when you have people that have economic issues, and the court understands it, and they work with our office and the state's attorney's office to stretch out payments over time. So what would normally be, somebody would get a $500 or $600, $700 fee finder cost at the end as an assessment. That may be over several months. That may be over 6 months. That may be over 5 months. It might be over 8 months. Okay, I'm looking for confirmation, or years. And so it has been recognized by the court. It's been recognized by the state's attorney's office that these payments can be protracted over time. We take the money that comes into us as assigned, and we do it. But it means that this money is being pushed forward, okay? But it's still owed by the defendant, and it is still an order of the court. Next slide. Additional responsibilities, I won't belabor on this, but we could probably fill the next 20 minutes in talking about all the responsibilities of our office outside of the first ones I talked about, which were the 3 standing responsibilities. We get into a tremendous amount of help and support with other law enforcement agencies. Our staff is cross-trained, and by the way, we speak several languages: Greek, Polish, Italian, Spanish. We sign language, and there's a few Mandarin Chinese. I believe there is one person who speaks Mandarin Chinese. So we are an asset to not only to the defendants that come in, but we assist in other agencies. Next slide. We're a ministerial office, of course. We have no power to assign anything other than what the court has given us to do, okay? And so the records, we hold all the records, we work through, and we intertwine that with the judicial system. Next slide, I'm just trying to move this. This is somewhat of a demonstration. It's a little bit dated because we're missing a few of the things that we do right now, but this is kind of how we look as a part of our software and a part of our hardware and what we support daily. It has grown, and the newest add to this is that our office now, the clerk's office, is now taking over the management of Zoom calls on the civil side and on the criminal side going forward, starting on the 24th. So our office is managing that additionally. And that's not part of it, as a few others. Thank you. We have our obligations of 44 courtrooms. We have several agencies, including the state police and the Secretary of State, that we report to. We disperse funds to 80 plus agencies and municipalities. And our investment in IT software through the use of court automation and dock storage has kept our general fund at a minimum. I just have to say this, this is not part of any slide or anything, that looking back in 2004, my budget was $7,100,000. It is now $7 million, a little bit under $7.8 million over 17 budgets. That's not a big growth over those 17 budgets. Talk about the elephant in the room, okay? Well, the small elephant.
Yeah, I'm trying to lose some weight. You have to.
All right. The budget cut. And we were asked, and we responded. And whether it's 10%, 20%, 30%. We looked at it, and we will tell you, let me just keep this kind of brief. And I'm just rounding up numbers here. If we were to reduce our head count, or strike that, our budget by 10%, it would be $790,000. I'm just rounding off, okay? Just back of an envelope. We're looking at an average salary of $35,000. You're looking at 10 people. If you step it up, obviously you just go to the second one, million and $1.5 million, it's 22. And if you go to 3, it's now over 45 people. We would now be, under 100 people. We would have literally darkened courtrooms because I would not have enough clerks, because currently I have 44 clerks in 44 courtrooms. Court would be dark, maybe whole parts of dark. Law, chancery would wait until I could get somebody from DUI who may have done a law or a chancery or misdemeanor or domestic. Whole courtrooms, maybe whole sections of the court proceedings would remain dark until I could get somebody in that courtroom, as long as the law states that there needs to be a clerk in the open courtroom setting. Notwithstanding the rest of the obligations, not only of our basic understanding of being in a courtroom, but if you start moving along, then it would be impacted to every single division, whether it's IT, finance, criminal traffic, civil, whatever. The service files would not be in time. They wouldn't be up to the courtroom because I would have to remove people off the roll in down in courtroom services. It would have a huge impact. You've heard it from every other elected official, okay? You've heard it from it. We believe collectively that we run a very good office. We've done a very good job. But don't ask us. Ask the legal community. Ask the people who work in that office literally every day where they would rather practice in the 4 or 5 counties surrounding. Ask them how it's done in DuPage County and relative to those counties. And finally, and I say we because it's like us and the other, there's 4 of us here, so the other 146 people that work every day in that office, we are remarkable stewards of the money. I have, and Julie did this for me, this is the budget and spent, okay? The budget, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's pretty small. But it's since 2004 to present, to 2019. We're still finished, obviously, in 2020. Every one of these have we returned money back to the county at an average of roughly a little over 2.5%. Every one of them. We have never taken advantage of the county and our relationship with the county. We are a separate branch, but we are a county partner, and we believe in that. So when Julie comes to me and she's tapping her toe, and we're in the 4th quarter, and she says, we're getting close, I said, okay, but it's never happened. If I'm comment on that, if you may, about us having to go and get more money or move money, have any type of budget changes. We've always lived in, and it is a crystal ball. We know that, but we've lived within the confines of that budget every year. And I hold this up, and the average has been roughly about 2% of the budget we have returned. So we live within the confines, the 4 corners of the budget that you give to us every single year. We've never taken advantage of it. And I know these are tough times, very tough times. But I want that part of the record. I want that out and understood that we will live, with whatever happens, and we will manage with whatever happens, but it will have certain ramifications, okay? So I'm going to close at this point. I know that if there are questions, and I'm sorry about the delay.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I did. I was concerned where now the chief judge has capped the court calls at 50. Have there been any adjustments, staggering times, court calls? I mean, and he just said there were too many people in the courthouse. I haven't heard of, have there been an outbreak? If employees come down with this that we don't know about? I mean, has there been like a major problem over there? Because we're not getting the information, so.
Yeah,
that
well,
concerns
it,
me.
we shared among the stakeholders, okay? And yeah, there has been, okay? We have had somebody who may test positive. I'm not gonna get into HEPA, or and then again, I can't, members say, but there has been. And so we have to work, and we work very closely with the sheriff's office, because in that courtroom, in most cases, there is a clerk, there is a judge, there is a member of the sheriff's office, and there could be any combination of local prosecutors or Jeff York's office and public defender's office, the private attorneys, whatnot, and obviously the defendants and the general public, okay? And yes, there has been, and we work with that. And there has been staggered starts. And we have the 8 o'clock call, we have roughly 8 o'clock, 8:30, and then what is it? Addison is 10, okay? And so we try to balance that, okay, with people
Every
walking
afternoon?
through. Pardon?
Afternoon calls?
At
There
1 and
has
2,
one.
1 and 2. And you know, member Sam Tornatori is there in another capacity, but you know, he sees it, you know, and we're trying to manage people trafficking and things like that, but we're not getting into it. But yes, we've had some concerns.
Thank you. Other questions? Next slide here, we talked about comparison with and you see that's it's broken down by individual. You list the number of cases that are handled per staff, but not the cost of the case per case compared to other counties, because obviously you could have 100 people and in another county you could have 150 people with more staffing, but the cost of those people is higher here, then that skews those numbers. I would be interested in that. Second, I'd like to, if you could circulate those slides to everybody. I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So we have it. Do you know what percentage of your employees in the clerk's office have been working full-time since COVID-19, either at home or here?
The percentage of it, I would say that we were probably working at about 60%. I had to balance out because I had to split, because if I were to, you know, lose a group, I wouldn't be able to fill some of the courtrooms that are ongoing. So I managed people in, back in, move them out again. And then the ones in the courtrooms, the actual clerks, we brought those clerks down and we had them auditing, we had them going through files, we had them on a daily basis.
Okay, but there are, because of the fact that there are jobs that have to be filled here that you can't fill 100%, because of COVID, there are people at home whose time is not fully engaged.
Right.
Fair?
Not anymore. Oh, no, May 18th, we're back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, full time. Absolutely.
That was from March 16th
Through the middle of May,
through the middle of May.
Yeah, we were back weeks ahead of time. But, and Member Larson, that courthouse never did close, okay? And so we have obviously orders and other proceedings in person, criminal proceedings that had been, you know, bond hearings, things like that. So that door never closed. Okay, there was no appointments, there was no nothing. And I gotta tell you something, it made staff people walking in incredibly nervous that front door closed. Okay, and I understand. And then so we did as much as we wanted and survived. I thought very well.
Because of the available processing at some point. At some point, I would hope the efficiencies associated with doing electronic processing as opposed to having everybody come into the courthouse will go down at some point, even if our revenue from them goes down because the state keeps stealing their money. Do we know that?
You know what? I would not be in a position to even answer that. You know, I didn't even consider that as an analytic.
And then, last question. We're talking about, based upon your budget revenue loss this year,
defer to Julie a little bit.
Not really, because, I mean, a lot of people are doing payment plans now, and literally it's $10 a month. So even on tickets that we're getting that are $164, we are getting $10 a month. So it's gonna be 16 months before it's paid off.
So at a
So-
minimum, you're anticipating continued very substantial revenue loss as well in 2020.
Yeah. But it could turn around, I mean.
Thank you, Chris. I've got to say, as somebody who's in the courthouse 3 to 4 days a week, your office, the sheriff, and the chief judge have done an absolutely remarkable job bringing the courthouse back. It was always open for bringing it back. Efficiency that we're in right now. So kudos to you. I think you may have misspoke when you said you were, maybe I misheard. You were going to spend 10%. They spent $35,000.
Oh, 10%, yes. And 5% is, I misspoke.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah, right. That would be a and obviously, I got 25% of the revenue coming in, used to come in, if everybody pays. And I can tell you that 1 out of 10 people who are in court who haven't paid, don't have the money, they're supposed to have it, which is 3 months after they were there the first time. So the reality is that people don't have it. Now as we start to work, we're going to be going soon on the 4th floor next week, and maybe traffic at some point right now. Your office. Or sometimes their iPhones. The reality is that you've got a lot of information. You might. Thank you. We'll let you guys.
Since the start here in a few seconds. Thank you.